Welcome back, friends. Last week we had a conversation about whiskey versus bourbon because they are different. We focus on bourbon, which is a type of whiskey, but listen, not all whiskeys are bourbons. Join me now for part 2 of our conversation in our Happiest Hour segment. It's Adam Acquistapace of Acquistapace Markets. Adam, welcome back.
Good to see you, absolutely.
Good to see you as well. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about more brown liquor because we love brown, okay? And last week you really gave us a great lesson on how really the defining factor when it comes to bourbon and whiskey is the corn. That's what makes bourbon bourbon. What's the defining factor for whiskey in general?
Man, it's a tough one. All right, so whiskey in general, think of it as anything that you would make a beer out of, any sort of grain that you're gonna ferment, and then we're gonna distill it off, and then that, when it comes out of the other side, that's what's gonna be called a whiskey. Now, they make this stuff all over the world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different styles depending on where they're made. So what we did is we picked, I think like outside of the US, 3 important regions for whiskey. So we have Scotch whiskey, Japanese whiskey, Canadian whiskey, and Irish whiskey. And so, you know, and they make different whiskeys in different styles. In this case, these are all gonna be at least 3 years old.
Okay.
And so every place has its own rules. I would say Scotch whiskey, probably some of the most famous whiskeys in the world, and have been for a long time because the Scotch whiskey and the rules of that, some of the stuff has been, I don't know, more than 500 years old.
Wow.
I mean, so they've been making whiskey for a long time. And so, you know, you'll see even some spellings like we talked about before, you'll see with an EY or a Y. All of these, with the exception of Irish, will have just the Y.
Wow. Well, look, in honor of St. Patrick's Day coming up on Monday, let's start with an Irish whiskey.
All right.
What are we drinking?
So we're gonna have Tullamore Dew.
Okay.
All right.
It's even green. How cute.
Yeah. So you know what? When we're gonna talk about the whiskeys, without getting the too technical side, let's just kind of talk about what the styles are and what you expect, and maybe kind of how to pick it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so in this case, this is Irish whiskey, and there's a whole selection of Irish whiskeys. They have blended whiskeys. There's single grain whiskeys. They're pot still.
Jameson, probably one of the most common. We love a green tea shot.
It is, yes. And so, so most people know Jameson, but the other big ones are like Bushmills and Tullamore Dew. There's Redbreast, there's Green Spot and Red Spot and Blue Spot. So there's a lot of great Irish whiskeys out there. But when you think about Irish whiskey, if you want to compare it to like a U.S. style bourbon whiskey, these whiskeys are going to be lighter in style. It's going to be, they're going to be a little bit sweet.
I want to do the Irish jig.
I
know.
So
I feel like I'm in Ireland.
So it's got lots of grains in there. So it could have rye. They could have malted barley. They could have corn. So they're going to use different grains to make these whiskeys. But oftentimes they'll triple distill it. So the more times you distill something, the lighter the spirit will be.
This is really good. It's light, but it really is full of flavor. Like, what's the proof on this one? We gotta see.
It's gonna be at least 80 proof.
80 proof, unbelievable.
But it's light, it's easy, and Irish whiskey is easy to drink, but they do make some real robust and richer. So if you wanna look for one that says pot stilled, like Redbreast, that's gonna be a more voluptuous style Irish whiskey.
We like voluptuous.
That's right.
All right. Now let's go ahead and take us across the world. Tell me about this one.
So we're gonna go to Japan. Japanese, so the Japanese style of whiskey is going to be more similar to the Scotch style of whiskey. It's like they're trying to copy that style, but their whiskeys are very beautiful and very precise.
Wow.
Like, think of it like the most technical whiskey that you can think.
Yes.
They're very good. They're very smooth. They're extremely well made.
And would you say that is the defining factor because there are different ingredients that grow in those regions?
Yes.
They use those to help differentiate the different ones.
So not only the ingredients, but climate. So because they're aging these spirits in barrels, and every place has a different climate that they're aging the whiskeys in. And so a whiskey will age much more quickly in Kentucky than it will in the Highlands of Scotland.
Yeah.
And so a whiskey that's 6 years or 8 years old that's from Kentucky is going to be real dark and deep.
Oh yeah, this is different.
Oh, it's nice though. It's pretty.
It's nice, Adam. I can't see straight no more. You gotta understand.
Well, yeah.
Wow, this is definitely different. You're really tasting the different flavors, which I think is important, right?
It's soft. It is easy to drink. It's more like Scotch, but it has a real long depth of flavor.
All right, the Japanese.
Yep.
Okay, I can't pronounce this or see this.
But there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them out there, but sometimes they can be difficult to find. And but in general, Japanese whiskey, they drink a lot of whiskey there, but they make really high quality stuff. Most of it they keep for themselves.
I love that. Okay, let's try one
All
more.
right, so we're gonna go to Glenmorangie. So Glenmorangie, so we grabbed this one because this is more of a classic style of Scotch whiskey. Comes from the Highlands, which is an area in northern Scotland. Scotland, yep. And this is it. So it has to be at least 12 years old.
Wow.
Yep. And so this is
almost a teenager
I
right
know.
here.
So this is a lighter style, easy drinking whiskey right here. But I think this is a great example of what Scotch whiskey can be like. That's easy to drink. So sometimes people say, oh, Scotch can be smoky and peaty. Well, it can be, but it doesn't need to be. There's so many different distilleries in Scotland and so many different styles. And that's, when people say, what kind of whiskey do you like? Well, I really like Scotch because it's so interesting. And even though in most cases they're using just malted barley.
Wait a minute. You're telling me Scotch is short for Scottish?
We're going to Scotland.
Stop it. So when someone says Scotch, you're talking about a Scottish whiskey?
Yes.
Wow. We are learning today. I'm telling you, I really did not know that. Well, look, cheers to you on that. And I have one more quick question I have for you. I notice everything is being served neat.
Yep.
Of course, you can put it on ice, right? But is it ever a situation where I can just put this bottle maybe in the freezer, in the refrigerator, and serve it?
I would definitely chill it. And so in general, for like all these whiskeys, I would like for myself, I would drink it. If you're just nosing it, because these are single malt glasses. Another thing, like this is a single malt Scotch. Another question people ask a lot about, what about single malt Scotch? Single malt means that it comes from a single distillery.
Okay.
If it says single grain, it's a single grain. If it's blended, a blended whiskey comes from lots of distilleries.
My mind has been blown, okay, and hopefully yours has as well. And look, honorable mention to Crown. We love Crown in New Orleans, okay, from Canada. And look, as you all can see, there are so many different types of whiskey, and they sell a lot of them. Acquistapace has 3 different locations, one in Covington, one in Mandeville, and one in Slidell. For more information on everything they have to offer, Acquistapace.com. And remember, especially with brown liquor, always drink responsibly. Okay, stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back with more Great Day Louisiana.